You hear the name Cleopatra, and you probably picture beauty, power, maybe even a little bit of mystery. But what if I told you her greatest weapon wasn't her looks at all? What if it was a brilliant, calculated strategy? Today, we're going to break down the tactical genius of the last pharaoh of Egypt. And believe me, her methods for grabbing attention and holding on to power are just as powerful today as they were 2,000 years ago. Let's get into it. So, let's start with a puzzle. Just imagine for a second, you've lost everything. Your throne, your power, your entire country. And your only shot at getting it all back depends on winning over the single most powerful person on the planet. What's your move? This isn't just some old story, it's a high-stakes game of psychological chess. And for this deep dive, our guide is the classic book, The Art of Seduction. We're going to use the analysis in these pages to deconstruct the brilliant, totally theatrical moves that really defined Cleopatra's entire career.
And the whole thing kicks off with maybe the boldest first impression in all of history. Seriously, it was pure theater, and it was designed for an audience of one.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The year is 48 BC. Cleopatra is just in her early 20s, and she's been kicked off her own throne. She's got no power, no army, nothing. But then a massive opportunity literally sails into the harbor. Julius Caesar. He is the key. The problem? He's surrounded by her enemies. She can't even get in the door for a meeting. So what does she do? She comes up with this wild plan. She gets a merchant to smuggle her into the palace at night, rolled up inside a carpet. And right there, in front of Caesar, this carpet is unfurled and out she tumbles. The stories say she appeared before him like Venus rising from the sea. I mean, can you just imagine the absolute shock in that room? The sheer guts of that move? And the result? It worked. Absolutely brilliantly. In one dramatic moment, she completely bypassed all the politics and presented herself not as some desperate queen begging for help, but as a divine surprise, a gift. The source tells us Caesar was just immediately enchanted. It completely upended everything he was expecting. That very night, she became his lover, and pretty soon after, he put her right back on the throne. But wait a minute. This brings up the big question we always have about Cleopatra. We assume her power came from just being drop-dead gorgeous. But was that really the source of her incredible charm? Well, the fascinating thing is, the source text itself tells us that's a myth. Writers from that time, they talk about other things. They say that, yeah, other women might have been more beautiful in a conventional way, but her real power was something else entirely. So if it wasn't her face, what was it? Her real weapon was her presence. It was this intoxicating cocktail of a razor-sharp mind, a flair for the dramatic, and, most famously, her voice. See, it wasn't about looking perfect, it was about creating an unforgettable experience for anyone who was lucky enough to be near her. And this quote from the source material just nails it. Her voice was apparently hypnotic. People were so mesmerized by the sound of her speaking, the how, that the actual words she was saying almost didn't matter. They remembered the melody, not the lyrics. That was a huge part of her power. Okay, so she's got Caesar. But what happens next? Well, fast forward a few years, Caesar is assassinated and Rome is a mess again. There's a new top dog in town, Mark Antony, and guess what? Cleopatra has to secure her throne all over again. Think about it. She had already pulled off the legendary carpet trick. How do you top that? To capture a guy like Antony, who was known for loving spectacle and pleasure, she knew she had to go bigger. Way bigger. The stakes were higher, so the show had to be grander. So when Antony summons her, does she just show up? Oh no. She stages an entrance for the ages. She sails up the river on this incredible golden barge with purple sails and silver oars. And she's dressed as Aphrodite, the goddess of love, surrounded by her attendants all dressed like nymphs. The air on the shore was thick with perfumes coming from her ship. She turned a political meeting into a divine event. And with that one single jaw-dropping spectacle, she did it again. Antony was completely conquered. He fell so hard for her that he basically abandoned his duties, his wife, everything, just to follow her back to Egypt. So we've seen the carpet, we've seen the barge. But let's get to the why. Why did this stuff work so well? What was the deeper strategy going on here? Here it is, the secret sauce. Cleopatra understood something crucial about powerful men who have everything. They get bored so easily. Her strategy wasn't just to be charming or beautiful, it was to be endlessly entertaining, to create this illusion that a life with her would be a non-stop adventure. It's the ultimate kind of audience engagement, right? And man, did she deliver. Life with Cleopatra was a total whirlwind. The source material tells us she was always orchestrating something. Huge tributes, mock battles, grand adventures, lavish costume parties, you name it. She built this whole world of fantasy and drama that made real life seem kind of boring in comparison. She kept Antony's mind totally occupied. And this quote really sums up the end goal of her whole strategy. By always being the one directing the show, by always keeping everyone guessing, she was never fully possessed. You couldn't own her. Instead, you worshipped her. She was always just a little bit out of reach, and that just made people want her even more. Okay, so let's strip away all the togas and the pyramids for a second. What's the timeless lesson here? What can we actually pull from Cleopatra's playbook and apply today? Well, the big takeaway from this whole analysis is pretty powerful. What we learn from Cleopatra is that it's not beauty that truly captivates someone, that creates that irresistible siren-like pull. It's a theatrical streak. It's the willingness and the sheer ability to become a fantasy. She was a master of appearances. You could call it the ultimate act of personal branding, centuries before anyone even knew what that was. Her real power wasn't in her body. It was in her ability to write and direct the entire show. And that really leaves us with one final question. When you think about our modern world, which is so saturated with curated images and nonstop performances on social media, Cleopatra's strategy feels more relevant than ever. It really makes you stop and think, who's writing the script for your life?